If you want to ask us questions that you want to get answered on the show, you can go and do that. We have channels for it on our Discord, shadowcasters.network/Discord. There's a questions for the show channel, but also if you're a patron, there's a specific one for you guys. You put your questions in there, and I draw from those questions first. So you basically get priority, your questions. As a patron, whatever questions you have, they're always going to get answered because we draw from that first. So do that. Or you can email us at contact@shadowcasters.network. Patreon.com.
Thank you for your patience.
Yeah.
While I absolutely took this on a tangent.
No. It's fine. It's fine. Patreon.com/Shadowcasters if you are interested in that. So the question we have from Discord was Trav, not Travis, but Trav on Discord asked a question that has to do with RPGs and mechanical systems.
I'm going to interject and say also one of the players on our MechWarrior Destiny game. So,
yeah, there you go. Asked, what makes for a better game? Mechanical systems, like something that includes like rolls and card flips and stuff for doing everything. So mechanical systems for doing everything, or let me change the emphasis here because I think the emphasis is on everything. So what makes a better game? Mechanical systems for everything, or reserving mechanics for only those situations where chance is inherently involved? What do you guys think? So very crunchy games like Shadowrun obviously jumps into my when I think of mechanical systems for everything. Shadowrun seems to be one of those games that strives to come up with a system and a subsystem for every little situation that you're going to be in and everything that you'll want to do. So
I'm going to go ahead and say, like, even though I said I like some amount of crunch and whatever is involved in that, I have a very strong opinion about this. I hate rolling dice for everything. Like, I hate keeping track of things. I want to be good at what I'm good at and roll that. You know what I mean? Most of the time. Like, if there's a danger, if there's a what did we say, Cliff? If there's a if the result is important, right? Like if there's some substance or weight to whether this passes or fails or to what happens, then I want to roll for it. I want there to be sort of a consequence. But if, for every little thing like swimming, like, why does my guy need to know how to swim in Shadowrun? Why can't we just say that the big damn hero of the entire game universe right here knows how to swim? Right? Like I
think for me, I guess kind of from a game design perspective, it depends a lot on the game. I mean, some role-playing games are designed such that you could do an incredibly wide range of activities or stories with them. Mm-hmm. D&D comes to mind, Shadowrun, any sort of larger, sort of what we think of as like the big name kind of role-playing games. They're kind of expected to be able to have some way to figure out what happens when the players come up with something that they want to try and do. I personally think that such systems work best when they have an overall sort of central, well tied together system that can be applied in different ways. That is applied in different situations, but it's fairly consistent throughout. So that when you do run into situations that aren't covered by the rules, it's easy to follow from conjecture and context what you should do. Like D20, D&D 5e is pretty easy on that. You make an ability check of some kind, and you can do the thing. You don't have to have a bunch of rules for it, but you roll a D20 and you add your bonus, and you have some idea. However, I do think there's an entirely other way of looking at RPGs where the individual RPG is designed to convey a certain kind of more specific storytelling experience, such as Bluebeard's Bride that Oz was talking about before. Got a chance to play off the air, where you're role-playing the facets of a person's psyche in a bad situation, or a role-playing game that I designed called Funny Freakout, where you're a TV crew trying to pull off a prank on somebody for fun. And the things you roll dice for in that are to affect the mark's perception of what's going on and pull off a good show. We don't roll dice to figure out how well you drive a car or whether or not you can do a particular technical thing. We roll dice to see if the thing that's important to the game that we're playing, the prank is affected by what you just did and how. And I see that played out again and again with a lot of these really neat, creative, efficient indie games, like Balik Bayan. They've got rules for covering certain things, and you when that's important, you do your move for it. But when your character is trying to see if they can do something that's not important to the story, who cares?
Exactly. Yeah, and I think there is a lot of emphasis sometimes in the big name, 500-page RPGs of we can cover everything, but you can't, right? Like whether you can actually achieve it is questionable. I mean, you brought up D&D. Absolutely, you can do it.
Yeah, and yet even those, like most of those games are, here's a bunch of rules for handling combat with a little bit thrown in for when you're doing something else.
Yes, it's very combat centric, right? So, but if the game is like, what game comes to mind actually about this? Vampire. I remember there's all of this stuff for combat, but it's supposed to be a very political game. So why don't we have a lot of social rules for it, right? Like you just kind of assume.
I remember the first time I played Vampire, I was like, okay, cool. When do I get to kill people? And they looked at me like, what? No, you want to avoid combat. And I was like, well, why do I have all these combat? Like, why do I have 2 pages of combat stuff? Why do they even work on this if I'm trying to avoid combat? Yeah,
exactly. So I'm personally of a mindset where no, you don't need to have mechanics for everything, nor should you, but you should have mechanics for the things that your game is supposed to be about, and that requires a lot of time and design to strip out the stuff that is superfluous, that doesn't actually matter, versus the things that do. Now,
I'm with you, Oz. I just wanted to say, like I will put my foot down firmly and say that I think having a system for everything, every little thing that you could possibly do, and all the subsystems, it's just bad design. I'll say it.
Yes,
I think a good design doesn't need it because it's just there.
So your D&D 5e example is a good example of that. I agree with that.
Now, something that is interesting, though, is because I know that we were just talking about dice rolls for things that matter, right? That would have stakes. But I would also argue sometimes having dice rolls for things that just to see if we can cause a complication.
Sure.
So like, maybe it doesn't look like there are stakes right up front, but if if you're trying to parallel park a car and I just want to see like how funny it would be if you crash it into somebody else's car, like roll for it, fine. And there's like some fun moments to be had with like meaningless rolls that, can cause problems in the narrative just for fun. So,
but that's not meaningless.
Right.
Exactly. But
let me describe what you're saying then, right? Because what you're saying is I have agency right now. I want to create an issue or to create something important out of this, right? It's not the game telling you to do that.
Correct.
Right?
Yes.
It would be funny if you rolled to pet the dog, right? The meme. I rolled to pet the dog. Like I rolled a 1, you hit the dog, right? Like yes, those are funny,
right.
But like I don't want to play a game of pet the dog.
Oh no, it's a cat.
Right. I want to assume that I can pet the dog. But you're right. Like, okay, cool. Let's do this funny. Like let's amp this up. Let's make a scene out of this. I think a good mechanic, what Cliff was saying, is one that allows you the freedom to do that if you want.
Right.
But doesn't force the GM or the players to memorize pages upon pages if they want to do any particular thing, right? If petting dogs is page 932 in your rule book, you have failed utterly, right?
And wasted a lot of your time and everyone else's.
Or have you just created the greatest role-playing game of all humanity?
But seriously,
page 942, petting cats. Page 943, petting llamas. Yeah.
And as we've said, a D20 system like D&D 5e does a good job of that. But I think a game system like Shadowrun in 5th edition or 6th edition, especially towards the end of 5th edition, was having a rough time of that because they were creating like unique subsystems for every situation, and you had to look up exactly.
Man, I wrote for Shadowrun for a very long time, and I still do. But I will tell you right now, the fatal flaw of Shadowrun in not making the Matrix and the Magic and the Meat World all the exact same system, just skinned kind of differently, that's a huge mistake.
Yeah.
Right? Design-wise. Like having entirely different and utterly complex systems that only apply to a very small portion of your player base seems to me to be a huge mistake.
Yeah. Agreed. So yeah.
I love it. I love it when people agree with me, especially on air.
Yeah.
We'll create a
I thought you were
cake.
going to say especially Bobby because it happens so rarely.
Yeah, Bobby
I am
is
the
funny.
contrarian
Bobby and I do agree on most things.
I think that's true.
Again, coming from the radically different backgrounds that Bobby and I come from, I mean, as both bearded white male parent type people,
As radically as different as it can be.
Right. But philosophically, we have very different starting points, but we come to very, very similar conclusions on most things in life and in love and in liberty and in disco.
And with that, I think that's a beautiful ending to the show. So I'm gonna say thank you, all of you, for watching, and thank you to my co-hosts for having a good show with me today. We're going to for talking tabletop and all the things surrounding it. Stick around for the post show.
Yeah, I have a question to ask you for the post show, everybody.
Brilliant. But for those listening, after the fact, in other ways, we are the Shadowcasters Network, and this has been the show as yet to be named. And we will see you next week. Remember, you can email us with any kind of comments or questions or anything at contact@shadowcasters.network. You can get onto our Discord, shadowcasters.network/Discord. Become a patron over at patreon.com/shadowcasters. And most of all, just keep listening and tell your friends about it, because we love doing what we're doing. So from me and the rest of the Shadowcasters Network, we'll see you next week. Bye-bye.